they're always there. Action Force are there. Action Force will dare. Action Force. Now, your host, Joe Slupski.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slupski. And welcome back to all of our listeners, all of our new listeners. This is the podcast where I've covered every episode of G.I. Joe, the Real American Hero, the cartoon, the Sunbow cartoon, the DIC cartoon. I've even covered Extreme and walked through the G.I. Joe Real American Hero comic book, how it draws, all the various ephemera, working our way through. We've done magazine issues, and you are here back again this week for another episode of Joe-Nie Loves Action Force with special guest host Michael Nie.
Hello, everybody.
Michael, welcome back. Listeners, you don't know this, but we haven't seen each other in about 2 months.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. We basically took the summer off to go live life, make things, go to things, get COVID, all that good stuff. And we
made a movie in July.
Made a movie in July, which I want you to talk about as much as you can.
Yeah, well, it was here in Los Angeles. The title of the film is Sticky, and that's the name of a homeless character in the show who happens to be mistaken for a serial killer at one point. Therefore, he gets kidnapped and taken away, and well, that's about all I'll say at this point. But
that's fun.
But it's a dark comedy in the spirit of like a Martin McDonagh film, such as In Bruges or Seven Psychopaths. And,
oh, great!
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Low budget, ultra low budget independent film. But
and you directed?
Director of photography.
Director of photography.
So a good friend of mine from Ireland directed the film, Joe-Nie, and he and I did a film back in New York about 6 years ago, and so this is our sophomore outing here in LA since he moved out to LA now. And it was hard. It was a tight schedule, 17 shooting days, but it was a lot of fun. And the last shot of the movie, I'm standing in Lancaster in the desert, middle of nowhere, 6-foot hole, so I got out of that hole. I'm happy to say that I survived.
That's Wellesian, man, digging holes to put the camera on the ground.
Totally.
That's Wellesian. That's amazing.
It was amazing.
I love it. Sticky. So listeners, keep your eyes out for Sticky. So since you just wrapped within the last couple of weeks, I'm assuming it'll be on VOD in a
Give it a year.
Give it a year.
Editing has just begun.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So it'll probably make a festival run. And then, this time next year. I think.
So look for it in 2025. And certainly, Michael, we're recording this, not sure exactly when this is going to air. This might air the week Sticky debuts.
There you go.
Keep your eyes out for that,
Yeah.
and I'm very excited for it. And congratulations!
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment, and I understand why you would set aside Joe-Nie Loves Action Force to do that.
It was
but
tough.
I swear to God,
I mean,
it had to be an emotional pull. That's really great. No, it's really
two high priorities in my life.
very much so. No, I'm very proud of you. That's awesome, and I honestly can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
So I expect Rebecca and I to get opening night passes to the premiere of Sticky.
Won't forget you, Joe.
Oh my God, that means so much. So listeners, we hope you've been enjoying Action Force. Again, we're recording this early, so in arrears if you have been sending in letters of hate. Get out of here. We don't need that we don't need it.
Get across the pond.
We love Action Force. We're really enjoying it. And this week we have a lot to cover, so we're going to jump into it. We're covering a bunch of short arcs on Action Force this week. It's just used 28 through 34.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, so Action Force 28 through 34. So if you're following along, go to bloodforthebaron.com, check out their comics section, and you can follow along with these Action Force issues. Michael, do you want to take a look at the cover for 28 first?
Yeah, so 28, I have to say this is definitely of an era. I have a hard time believing we would see this today.
It's very true.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of those covers where it's actually unique a little bit in the sense it's got dialogue bubbles here, but instead of being like page one of the story, which we've seen a couple of times, this is literally just addressing the reader for the first time. And it's a Crimson Guard pointing his gun directly at you saying, thinking about buying a different comic, kid? Forget it.
Now that harkens back to a long, 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 rich history of comic books speaking to the reader, telling them specifically to buy this comic book under duress and threat.
Yeah.
Going back to National Lampoon's, buy this magazine or I'll shoot this dog.
Sure.
The Flash, going back to the Carmine Infantino, I believe, cover, where he was like, "Stop, readers! Like you have to buy this." Like I believe he was saying, "Stop! You must read this, or otherwise the world is doomed," or something like that. But he's putting his hand up to the, that hand is the menacing gun in this situation. You've got, was it an episode of Coyote, I believe, where they independent book, early 80s, where they were like, "I'll shoot this coyote."
Okay.
The She-Hulk, if you don't buy this, John Byrne's She-Hulk, if you don't buy this book, I'm going to come to your house and rip up all your X-Men. Although that would be after this, but still, it's of that ilk. This one, can you think of any others off the top of your head? No, this is all off the top of my head, because I didn't see that cover before you held it up, and I love it.
That's pretty good off the top of your head.
Yeah.
I can't. I just wanted to point out that the cover artist Mark Farmer here, he's new as a cover artist.
Oh, Mark Farmer inked a ton of Alan Davis.
Yes.
Brilliant inker.
Yeah.
Really brilliant inker. And I was going to say, I really like that drawing. It's a great drawing.
Yeah. And then he doesn't do, I think it's his only cover in Action Force. So, it's definitely
nice. It's really well rendered. It's a nice drawing of, if you're a Crimson Guards guy, it's a nice drawing. The gun, the way, the choice to just, that gun is symmetrical. You know what I mean? There's no artistic spin on it, right? That gun is it's like off the assembly line looking at you.
It's as down the barrel as you
down
get.
the barrel, yeah. It's as down the barrel as James Bond as you can get. I think it's great. You're right. I don't think they would do that kind of cover today, obviously. But the threatening covers, I love. I love the threatening covers because it's. We were just, before we got on the air, we were talking with the Wolverine Deadpool stuff, and like when Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, it's fine. I don't love it, but when they break when a cover breaks when a character that doesn't normally break the fourth wall breaks the fourth wall to threaten me into doing something, I enjoy. You know, like with the Byrne stuff, talking about that one, that was new for that character. You know, and then he did it a few times throughout he did throughout that run, but she had never done that before.
Well, and I do like, it does tie into the story a little bit in the sense
quite
that
a bit.
The readership are mostly children.
Totally.
And in the story, you have a Crimson Guard
which let's get into it, man. This story is amazing. It is called Gunpoint, and it is really, really relevant to today. Like this story should be, now there's a couple crazy things in it, of course, because there's always something crazy. But we open on Churchfield's Comprehensive. So I'm assuming that's comprehensive means like school. Yeah. Like a kid's school. You know, these British grammar.
I'll play on Churchill.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. It's Monday morning. Monday morning is maths. So I guess math class was called maths. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Algebra, trigonometry, long division. You get a nice wide shot of the school, little establishing shot, we'll say, the proper term.
At this moment, it's chaos.
It's chaos. These kids are in there. They're having fun.
It's British chaos.
It's British chaos.
It's controlled chaos.
There's slingshots. There's paper airplanes. And one of the kids happens to go into an unlocked storeroom. It's the sort of place you'd expect to find reports, books, rough books. What are rough books? It was like adult magazines. I'm serious. Like, what would rough books be? And inside this storage closet, this teacher is where he keeps his Crimson Guard uniform, which I love the idea that your local school teacher is secretly a Crimson Guard.
It's great.
And the kid looks at it and is like, "Hey guys, check this out." At the same time, said teacher walks in, I'm assuming with the principal.
Yeah.
And he doesn't miss a beat. And he pulls a pistol out of his jacket like nobody leaves. Second crazy thing, he's just walking around with a pistol in his jacket at school.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And nuts. Like, it's one thing to be a secret agent. Like when we saw the Fred stuff, you know, like they'd have it at home and they'd do their business and then, you know, they'd go. But this guy's like teaching kids and like, I still got to pack heat because you never know when Cobra's going to need my services.
He's got wardrobe skills because on the next page, very quickly, after he's already drawn his weapon and he's sort of taken
This
over.
is the third crazy thing I wanted to ask you.
He's instantly in his
He's
uniform.
in wardrobe. So the next page, we have another same establishing shot, which is nice. I like when motifs are repeated because the differences there tell us everything we need to know, and it really it grounds us into a story. So now it's the exact same shot, but now they've added a cop car and an Ostriker and Footloose and so on. Action Force has arrived. Time has passed. Think about this, Michael. Think about the logistics of what he had to do.
Oh, yeah.
He had to keep a gun on them while changing in front of them. Maybe he put the clothes on over his clothes. But, like, I don't know. Those seem pretty form-fitting, right?
Sure.
They're not like overalls, like coveralls, like Michael Myers would wear.
Right.
It's a form-fitting uniform.
It's not a paint suit. Yeah.
So like, did he undress in front of the kids? Is what I'm asking. This is what I'm trying to say this politely.
In his mind, if no one's going to make it out of this situation, then
you
maybe,
get to see me in my knickers.
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Did a kid assist him? And I am 100% before we go down this route. I am not saying any kind of weird stuff going on with kids. I'm just saying logistically, like, set all the weird stuff aside, like real world weird stuff. Did he have a kid like hold his, you know what I mean? Like, was it like, I got a gun on the principal, help me get my shoes off, help me get my boots off?
Simple way to do this would have been to have the Crimson Guard uniform under his ordinary clothes and just have the kid find the helmet.
Right.
And then he's just like, give me that helmet, kid.
Right.
And then he dons his helmet.
But no, that's not what happened.
No.
So and they're not tied up, as we see. They're all loose. That's the thing that really, the thing that threw me is that they're all loose in the final panel of this page.
Yeah.
If they were all like in a corner tied up, no, they're just walking around the room. So I guess maybe if you were like, put everyone go in the corner and stay there and like kind of cower them, but you're still standing in front of them,
sure,
changing your clothes, which is crazy. Like
there's a panel.
There's a lot
here.
going on.
There's some information missing.
There's some going on. Anyway, so Footloose has him in his sights. What I like about this panel is basically the cover, but instead of the Crimson Guard, it's Footloose.
Yeah.
And Flint's there on a bullhorn. Saying, come on out. We got you surrounded. He's got 16 kids plus the headmaster. That's a lot of hostages.
I'd be curious to know why Footloose was colored this way in Action Force. Why he is essentially yellow instead of green.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Claymore from Special Mission Brazil,
very true.
as I said before. But
maybe to set him apart because they knew that they were going to do a lot of verdant green landscapes.
That is true.
Specifically in this issue, but I think he's colored that way in the other issues too. But maybe that's why, just to give a little bit of variety. Probably not as many. If you're setting the action in England, it's more likely you're going to run into green than you are yellow.
True.
Yeah. Maybe that makes some sense actually.
There's how they also obviously do the G.I. Joe reprint stories in some of these, and I know we're not going through all of those, but in a later issue I will point out because they took the colors essentially as they were, and Footloose does make an appearance in one of those reprint stories. So the way they handle it is they rename the character. Because our Footloose in Action Force here is this yellow.
Do they call him Claymore?
They call him Long Slide.
Long Slide.
And
okay.
Never had an action figure.
That's
never
fun.
never had an intelligence profile, but definitely.
Are you listening either Super 7 or Hasbro, like with how you're doing these
deep cuts?
Yeah, they're doing the deep cuts where they're like naming the repainted Scarlet. Using the name from the Brazilian one. How about a Long Slide?
It would be the first ever Long Slide action figure.
That would be fun.
So,
so the headmaster calls him a fool, and this is again the fifth crazy thing. These comics are hardcore.
Yeah,
this guy doesn't fool around. That guardsman shoots him in the head. I'm assuming head, but he pushes him on the ground and goes, You've called me a fool for the last time. You've just given me the ideal opportunity to show Action Force that I am not to be toyed with in one shot. So I'm assuming it's in the school.
Blam. And because it leaves it to your imagination, pretty gnarly.
Pretty gnarly. Pretty gnarly. It is a cool shot. That shot of the guardsman blowing that gun, that screams Mad Max to me.
Oh yeah.
You know that picture I'm talking about where it's like a low angle camera?
Yeah.
And Gibson's kind of like holding the gun a little crooked, his arms tilted. That's that shot. It's great. These kids are horrified, rightfully so. This isn't a game, Sally. I'll kill you all if I have to. And here we go. This young little Poindexter, what's his name? Turner.
Leave her alone.
Stands up to a bully.
Yeah.
He says, I thought you taught you a lesson. I thought that was what you were supposed to be doing, sir, teaching us lessons. And he stands up to this bully. Gun pointed in his face, and now we get the real cover where it's so we've got a couple the guns pointed at the reader a lot in this issue. He says, I serve Cobra the new wave. This whole page is really nice. It's 1, 2, 3. There's 6 panels, horizontal, all even. Bam, 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 bam. Like camera flips each side. You got a lot of close-ups, a lot of dead-on shots, establishing one. It's really great. It's a really well-designed panel or page. And this kid says, if you kill all the children, there won't be a new wave. And he's going to make his own children. And you think they'll respect a man who takes an innocent lives? If you were my dad, I'd hate you. And he says, well, sacrifice me then. Don't think of your own kids when you do it. This kid's standing up to some bullies, Mike.
He's schooling the teacher.
Yeah. Teacher becomes the student.
Yeah, I mean this kid shakes him loose, and these next 3 panels, no dialogue at all.
Nope.
And it's just thinking about what has been said.
Thinking about what he has done.
Yeah.
Drops his gun. The kid's also scared to death.
Little traumatized.
Little trauma, little PTSD. Not even post, little CTSD, current traumatic stress syndrome. Flint gives him the old, you saved a lot of lives today, Gary Turner. Yeah, Mr. Flint. And they cart this, and this is the final thing that I think is crazy about this. This is a really good story, period. I think it's great. I think they did a wonderful job, both the lesson, like moralizing the lesson and putting some good stuff in it. So the Action Force carts off Crimson Guardsman. Footloose and Flint are talking about it, and they're talking about young Gary. Footloose says, hey, Flint, don't you think we should go after him? In other words, help a 10-year-old, 11-year-old who just had a school shooting, got shot, and had a gun in his face? And Flint says, no, Footloose. I think he just wants to be alone. It's no fun being held at gunpoint. He's got a lot of thinking to do. And the final panel is Gary imagining the Crimson Guardsman with a pistol to his head. And Flint says, and I reckon he'll be seeing that gun in his nightmares for a long time to come.
This is dark.
This is the darkest. What is happening?
I don't know. I mean, it's...
What? It's so close to being like, yes, and here's a bunch of trauma people that are going to help you get through this, Gary. Or here we've called your parents, Gary. Or, Gary, the nurse is going to take you to the hospital, Gary. Nope.
Where's the hope?
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's intense.
It's intense. It's insane. And the 80s were wild, but still, there were such things as counselors.
Yeah.
There were therapists.
Yeah.
And
in England, obviously, guns less of a thing.
Sure, even more so.
So this is like really like poignant.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting side note, interview that I listened to recently, Andrew Wildman was stating that he stepped off of drawing G.I. Joe because at one point he was raising his children. 6-year-old son walks in. What are you working on, Daddy? And he had a hard time explaining to his 6-year-old son, why all these characters had guns, and it made him uncomfortable. So he actually chose to step away from drawing G.I. Joe for that reason for a time. And he's come back. He's had a conversation with Larry Hama since, and Larry said, no, it's not about. Anyway, he's made peace with it in his mind, but obviously he's English artist and
sure,
and they just look
just
at
switched to drawing Transformers with guns.
There you
I'm
go.
just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
hear this, I'm totally joking.
Of course.
I'm totally joking. Yeah, no, that's huge. Those are the kind of conundrums that you hear about people running into, and you're always like, I don't know if I could do that. You know, like when they say, why did you take this job? Oh, because my kid wanted me to, to play that role, or I couldn't do this job because I wanted to, I turned down this because I wanted to stay home with my kids, or, like those kind of life decisions. They can really, they can really change your trajectory.
I mean, obviously, kids will change your life if you go down that
I
road
mean,
completely. But
do they, though? Really? Should they?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't they conform to you? Isn't that no? Not
All kinds of parenting styles.
Not what we're doing. Hey, yeah, parenting style for every day of the week.
But any way you slice it, this story,
That's cool.
this is intense.
This is intense. I do
intense.
think it's well done. I absolutely give it a thumbs up. Unabashedly, it's a strong story. It's just the details of it. When you really get into the details, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I mean, we talk a lot about how over the years Larry Hama had always, not. When he'd write, it's not writing down to his audience,
100%.
And this is a story, the content and how they handle it.
Did we talk who wrote and drew this? I think I skipped that.
So yeah, we only talked about so it was written by Steve Cook, and then Ford Allen drew it.
All right. Well, Steve Cook and Ford Allen, you guys honestly both did a really great job. I like Ford Allen's stuff is very English. His art is very like everyone's a little narrow. To be honest, the narrowness of it, I actually had a vibe that maybe he drew it at a different proportion and they might have had to shrink it a little bit, but I don't think so. Probably not.
Let me correct myself. So Steve Cook did the plot.
Okay.
Ford Allen did the script.
Did the script. Okay.
So they worked on it together.
Who drew it?
The artist is Anthony Williams.
Oh, Anthony Williams. Okay.
So this was a new
and then Anthony, I take that back. Anthony did a great job. But everyone's face has that lean look, which is I always attribute that to very British style, like very 2000 AD. Everyone's got that kind of very Carlos Esquera, I really liked it though. Good job, everyone. Really good job. But man, dark. I want that last panel. We're gonna go to the next one, which is a Sky Strike from issues 29, 30, and 31.
Yeah, and teeing that up in 28, they have a 12 Sky Strikers to be given away contest because we like our contests.
That just makes sense. I want that last panel when the kid's imagining the gun to his head. Instead of the gun to his head, I want it to be the teacher changing clothes into the guardsman uniform. That's the image he can't get out of his mind.
Yeah.
Completely. So they're like, he was traumatized by gun violence. No, I was traumatized by watching my teacher change his knickers. That's what traumatized me. Gun violence, it happens. It happens.
It's all kinds of trauma.
It's all kinds of trauma. So we're moving on to issues 29, 30, and 31.
Yeah, and for 29 here, they did something where they included a personnel printout.
What?
Where essentially attached to the cover on the outside, you have to unstaple it, but you have a number of Action Force and Cobra characters, and it's like a kind of like a decoder where you slide it up and down, and as you move along the character profiles, it gives you their allegiance, their role, their special arms specialty, their vehicle qualification.
I love that your copy still has that on it.
And so
that's great.
So yeah,
that's really neat.
Anyway, just
I like
a fun,
that. No,
fun little bonus.
That reminds me, I recently sold an older comic book that randomly had a double cover on it, and it went for a lot more money than I thought it would because you take the outer cover, which had a bunch of wear and wasn't stored properly, and you just carefully peel that off. You got yourself a mint copy of that cover.
There you go.
Yeah. So seeing that makes me think that protected that comic book. That helped keep that book in better shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
And then they even say across the top, free Action Force personnel printout. So that's what that is.
That's really great. Yeah.
And they talk about on the cover, 12 Sky Strikers must be one.
Be one. It's what's funny is that makes it look like that's the name of the story.
I know.
Because
that's how they've been doing it.
Yeah.
This is the first time.
This story is about G.I. Joe can't give away Sky Strikers enough. They've got 12 Sky Strikers and no one wants them. They must be crazy.
Yeah.
That's great. Now that cover's awesome though. It's really great. Do we know who did it?
Yeah, proportions are a little strange, but yeah, the cover artist. This is Kev Hopgood.
Okay,
so we're
yeah,
back to.
That's really nice. Yeah, proportions on vehicles are always weird.
Mm-hmm.
They're always weird. It's rare to find up properly because you need to squeeze everything cool into the picture, but oftentimes the pictures aren't. The dimensions of the page you're drawing for don't really match what you need to put in that frame. You know.
Not to mention, Ace's helmet was always weird to me.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. He's more spaceman.
Yeah.
You know. It's funny when they put out the Conquest with Slipstream.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like, well, that's a pilot. Ace is astronaut.
Right. Right. But yeah, so for this issue, writer Steve White, penciler Martin Griffiths.
Great.
So I think.
Well, they both did a really good job on this. I really like the artwork in this as well.
Yeah,
nice choices.
The landscapes, the colors.
Yeah, and it's a very it's an aerial battle adventure. So it's very much like the classic. I'm blanking on the name, but the Wild Weasel Ace fight from 35.
Yeah.
So it's got that vibe, that Red Baron kind of salute in the sky thing. Except there's one really crazy thing that we're going to get into. When we'll get into that, we'll deal with it. But it all takes place in South America. So my question is, what's Action Force doing operating in this hemisphere?
That's a good question.
Why isn't this G.I. Joe? Why didn't they they should have set this in like Northern Africa or something.
Well, so in one of the letters pages in one of the issues we're going to talk about today, a person asks the question, because in the world of Action Force, we know two things, and G.I. Joe isn't in the zeitgeist. So we know that Flint is the head of the European theater for Action Force, and then Hawk is the head of, he leads the American contingent of Action Force. But the reader asks, well, what about like the North Pole or Antarctica, or what about the Middle East? And, doesn't Action Force have bases of operations in all of these places? And the editor actually writes back and says, well, in fact, all the mountainous and polar, landscapes across the globe, Frostbite is the head of operations for Action Force.
Okay.
Apparently, he hadn't appeared in the comics yet, but they say he's coming at Christmas time. So these issues came out roughly in the
Exciting.
fall. So we'll see him down the line here. And then they said for the Middle East, actually, Dusty
That makes
is
sense.
a European operative who is in charge of the Middle East.
That's great. So who's in charge of South America?
They didn't answer that question specifically, but you mentioned G.I. Joe, so I would think that Hawk would also, would be his purview, because they said that Hawk is also in charge of Southeast Asia.
Interesting.
So
I like it.
the American contingent has a large scope.
I like it. It's funny. So as we are recording this, I recently covered an adventure from the G.I. Joe from the G.I. Joe magazine. So listeners, it was early August, one of my early August episodes, and it was an adventure where they were in South America as well.
Oh yeah,
and they rescued basically a cocaine farm.
Yep.
Yeah. So no cocaine farms in this one that I can tell.
Although there's a farm.
There's a farm.
Some kind.
So it's dawn. It's South America. It's a lovely, lovely establishing shot. Actually, I really like this. Almost impressionistic.
Yeah.
The colors really pop. Nice oranges on lush green jungle foliage, mountains in the background, and you see a sky striker coming out of the sun. It's really great. There's a farmer who's watching it. Now that sky striker is really buzzing the ground.
It's like 10 feet off the ground.
It is 10 feet off the ground. Yeah. to if you use the size of that guy as a marker, that sky striker is crashing right there. But they're doing as they call map of the Earth flying, right? So they stay off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And so comic book language is great because you can follow what's happening here at least as far as the setup goes. You may not know some of the details, but you can really follow it by just looking at the images. So you've got a plane coming in, flying in low over this jungle place, and then the next panel you get is just in the middle of the ocean, a giant it's the flag, aircraft carrier. So that's where this thing launched from. You know what I mean? There's just this level of communication there that I think is so great about comics.
Yeah.
That it's just bam, bam, totally unrelated picture. Oh, there's a connection there. That's where, and you see airplanes on the top of even if you don't understand what an aircraft carrier is, like just live in that world. You see that there's other airplanes on top of this thing. That means, oh, this plane must have come from there. Then you cut back to a canopy. Still, now this canopy isn't, yes, the canopy technically was in the other image, but it's not like you're seeing the whole plane again. They don't have to reestablish the plane. You just go to a close-up, and now you're seeing who's in this plane that you've established. You've established where they've come, who's in it. They're looking at something. They're both looking to their right, so you may not be able to see it, but they're looking for something. And then the next panel you get is something totally unrelated again, but what does that tell you? That's related to the thing. That's specific. They're looking for a base, but that's technically really the thing they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, and even the choices of artistically of so if you're looking at this page, listeners, the cockpit is drawn facing to the lower left of the page, and the characters are facing left, so they're looking to their right. Well, what's in their eye line? Just on the page, not necessarily in the panel, but on the page.
Yeah, they're looking down
They're
towards
looking directly at the fang.
Yep.
Right? Now they're not the plane is not pointed at the fang at all. They're looking at it from a different angle. But our page camera, is pointed at the fang. And then the next panel on this page, final panel on this page, we cut right into we do the same move that we did in the panel above it, which is showing who the pilot of that vehicle is. And it's a close-up of the fang driver. The only thing I would say about this, and this is tough to do in the Space Limited, is you can't tell that you really can't tell that's the cockpit of the fang because the rotors aren't there because they're spinning so fast. But if you were to put the spin of the rotors, that's really busy in that page.
Yeah.
You know, in that panel. And you would obscure the Sky Striker and stuff. So once you kind of make out that that's what that is, but the storytelling of all that is really great. Well, and really just take out all the dialogue and you know what's happening on this page. I love it.
And if you look at all the leading lines, so you have your images at the top where, you know, you're wider and then you go closer. And then, you know, these 4 panels at the bottom, if you look, it's like they're all angled down, 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 down. So it's driving your eye down the page as you read it.
And you want to get the reader to the bottom corner of the bottom right corner of the page. And what is that Sky Striker doing? That Sky Striker is pointing you to the bottom right corner of the page. And that's where the guy's eyes are, which then makes you want to flip the page. And if I'm looking at your physical copy of it, that is on the right page of the production piece, right? So they know that it's going to be on the right page. So that makes a reveal. So you do a page turn, and then you get your big action scenes. Like it is so.
And the title,
yeah, and the title you get it's a half page or 3/4 page splash page. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just pace, boom. You're into it, Sky Strike, you know. Really well done.
Yeah.
Like 100%. I love it. This is what's great about comics.
Even these 3 panels under the splash are all very dynamic.
Yeah. But now, so setting all that aside, this is what's crazy. Why is a jet going after a helicopter?
Well, they're looking for the base, right?
No, yes. Well, that's not the right question to ask.
Why do they engage?
How are the helicopters able to catch up to the jet is what I'm saying. Because they put a chase on this issue.
Yeah.
That jet is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Those helicopters are not moving that fast.
Yeah.
This whole thing, the premise of this is wild. Well,
so the helicopter was kind of doing its own business, and the jet has come upon it.
I agree. No, I may be premature in my.
But it is true. How are they?
My question.
How are they engaging in a dogfight?
Yes, that's my question.
How are you dogfighting?
I jumped the gun because we're not technically there yet. But this panel, and its panel's great, and I get it.
I agree.
But the caption of this though is, "We are too slow." You're too slow. You're going in a F-14, dude.
Yeah.
You're not too slow. Like. You even remove, the fact that they have to cram both vehicles into one panel. So, logistically, they're way too close than they would ever be. Just get that out of your head. No, you're not too slow. No, you're not. In fact, you're much too fast. There's no way they would keep up with you.
You're stalled out if you're.
Yeah, totally. Which does happen.
Yeah.
So when he says He's tucking in behind us. No, he's not. How? He's only behind you if you don't move. Like, I could see he could line himself up behind you, but you know what you do, Sky Striker? You turn right, and he's not behind you anymore because you're literally a mile away. That's how fast you can go. And it's Lady J, right? Not Scarlet. Yeah, it's Lady J. So she's riding Rio with Ace. Break right, because the Fang unleashed some missiles, and I'll give him this. Okay, so I could see that he could get a missile lock. I'll give him that. So now we got some nice moves, Ace. But Ace must be just circling the area. Why?
Yeah.
Because their look on their faces, oh no, we're in trouble. So leave.
And I could see why you maybe thought it was Scarlet for a moment, because Lady J goes from green to brown.
It's true. The coloring's off. Yeah.
Back to green.
And the hair's kind of reddish, a little more red than it is brown. Yeah. But she says, we've got 3 more fangs coming on our 6, from behind them. Mm-hmm. How?
Well,
again,
I'm imagining they're just all rising from the trees. It's like, they're in this area, and next thing you know, you're in the viper's nest, and there's fangs all around you. And it's not because they're faster. It's just
Gun. That's the only thing, especially in 1987. We've all seen Top Gun.
But we have 12 Sky Strikers to give away here, Joe. If we hadn't already given away the dragonflies, this clearly would be a dragonfly story.
It'd be a different story.
That's right.
No, you're 100% right, and I get it. But it is silly. It's crazy to me because they're like, we're gonna die unless the dragonflies, which are slower and easier to target, show up.
And then they do.
And they do. Yeah. So Flint and Wild Bill show up in some dragonflies too. And like you just see.
This is madness, clearly.
It's clear madness.
We need the dragonflies to bring it down so that we can have a proper aerial battle without all the discrepancies that make no sense.
Yeah, So it's, what the vibe is whenever I see in an action movie, you do get, speaking of Road Warrior, I recently rewatched those. I watched them in reverse order. Do that next time you feel like rewatching the Road Warrior movies.
Okay.
I mean it. Start with Furiosa and work your way back. You see the George Miller language of this world. You see it like reverse, unroll, develop.
Huh.
So you're reminded of all this craziness that he does now. And then you see, however many years earlier, oh, that was him thinking about this stuff. And it's like this refresher. And then you see it a little more prototype in the next one, in Road Warrior. And then you see it super prototype in Mad Max.
Yeah.
And I've never watched them in reverse before.
With fewer resources, you can kind of see as you limit your resources.
Yes.
How do you do this?
Yeah. And the verbiage, the script verbiage that he used, like you see him developing it. Like there's stuff they say in Mad Max, which 100% resonates all the way through Fury Road and Furiosa. Yeah, it's really, I love those movies, but it was really neat to watch them backwards like that.
Great.
Yeah. But that's the only franchise that I'll excuse people on motorcycles being a threat to someone in a car.
There you go.
Is my point. Because whenever someone's driving in motorcycles and someone's trying to escape in a car, you know what you do? You run them over.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's 3 motorcycles flanking us in this car. I'm going to turn left and I'm going to, swerve left and swerve right. And guess what? They're dead.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get away.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Now, in Fury Road, that happens, but they tend to just jump on your car and live. You know what I mean? So I get it. But anyway, so that's the vibe I'm getting here is.
Can we just also say he needs to do a Dreadnought film? Instead of doing, instead of doing another Mad Max franchise film, he just needs to, before he retires, he just needs. We need to get a Thunder Machine on his set,
right?
And we just need to see him have some fun.
You know what? To be really realistic about it, what would be really smart though? He's got your director of photography. He's got directors of photography. He's got all these ADs and stuff. All these people that work with him and under him on these modern movies. Mm-hmm. You pull one of those young talents, younger talents. Because I love him. His stuff is great, but he's pretty long in the tooth. Mm-hmm. But you go to one of those younger talents in Hasbro / Universal, Paramount, and you go, hey, what would you do with a Dreadnought movie?
Yeah.
Oh, well, how would we do it? Just do a Dreadnought origin movie. Do it just like Mad Max. Set it in Australia. Do the whole thing.
Yeah.
You could 100% just do an Australian biker gang movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wake and Fright meets G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
What would you do with a Dreadnought origin movie? If that wouldn't make all the money, it would make a big chunk of the money.
Yeah.
Because people love that stuff. It's real stunts. Like,
you can get a special thanks to Larry Hama. He can come down to the set and consult for a day.
100%.
He'd love it.
100% get Larry to consult. Like, and it doesn't have to be like Rise of Cobra or, Origin of Snake Eyes. Just call it G.I. Joe Dreadnoughts or, Dreadnoughts G.I. Joe or, Dreadnought G.I. Joe Down Under. Like
and then there'll be
it's a sequel. It's the unofficial sequel to Quigley Down Under.
There'll be the parody edition with teddy bears instead of biker gang. But
yeah. Oh man, get some drop bears, but they're fatal fluffies.
Yes.
That's the thing. They're Mindbender's down there experimenting with koala bears, and he comes up with the fatal fluffies.
Hollywood needs some new ideas.
It really needs new ideas, but I'm telling you, that would be an amazing movie. That would be an
entertaining,
amazing, entertaining movie and relatively low budget.
Yes,
like really would. You could 50 million.
So much fun to work on.
Right? Everyone in the world. So much. Lately, the big trend is real stunts.
Sure.
Like with Deadpool, Wolverine. A lot of that was real. A lot of CGI, but a lot of that was real.
I love that.
Everything Everywhere wasn't
all at once. Yeah.
Wasn't that have a lot of which? Oh, with Fall Guy. That's what.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Fall Guy actually.
Mm-hmm.
That was all stunts. I just watched the lottery movie that just dropped with Awkwafina and John Cena. Like it just dropped when we were recording it. It's really good. It's fun. All stunts, all practical people doing stage fighting and great. Like really, it's a showcase to watch people do stage fighting. It's you wouldn't think that from the poster, but that's totally what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do that with Dreadnoughts. Stop. You don't need to spend $200 million on this. You can do this for 50.
I mean, you'll be selling so much grape soda after that movie comes out.
Oh, that's your promo. I mean,
Crush needs a resurgence.
That's your promo stuff. Your popcorn bucket is shaped like donuts, a donut box, right? That's your popcorn bucket you sell, and then at all this Coke machines that are, it's the Dreadnought flavors, and it's all great variations on grape soda.
Yep, done.
Someone hire me. Hire me.
Genius.
By the time this airs, I may need a job. Hire me. Anyway, so we get a dogfight. Next page, fun. We get dogfight. It doesn't make any sense at all. We've covered this. But there's a lot of helicopters in the air blowing up. A lot of Fang and a couple dragonflies. Flint and Wild Bill, they pull their bacon out of the fire. We do go into a stall, as you were saying earlier. Mm-hmm. Ace and Lady J spend more time screaming and looking horrified in this than I would ever expected either of them, because they're both. I think of both of them as pretty cool cucumbers.
Well, I'll remind you, for what it's worth, there's an intelligence profile in this issue for Ace, and he is Canadian instead of American, so slightly different characterization.
Okay,
and
he's more polite then, yeah.
And she's Irish, So
Irish, her blood could have gotten up. That's what they say.
There you go.
Irish lasses get their blood up. And Canadian, that makes sense. That's why he was too polite to outrun the Fangs.
You got it.
While they're here, it would be rude of me to not fight them. That's exactly what is happening here.
Yes.
So we go to the next issue. We go to part 2 of Sky Strike. So
I just want to say really fast before we blow through it, the mail call, there's always one letter. This is a quick tangent. Someone wrote in, and we were talking about dreadnoughts. So they just say, how is it possible for Zartan to change color and disguise, like someone else? Yeah. And the editor writes back, as Zartan says, Zartan replies, I eat a high fiber diet. So yeah.
Anyway, so we go to the next issue. What's the cover? What kind of cover we got for the next issue?
Very similar.
Cool.
Also by Kev Hopgood here.
That's good.
Although, they made a promise that they were going to start listing cover artists in Mission Control, and they didn't really hold up that promise for a few issues. But I know, so technically it's not listed in this book who drew this. Yeah. But I mean,
it looks just like it.
You tell me.
It's great. Yeah. So
we know this is Kev Hopgood.
The previous issue was the Sky Striker whole and intact shooting missiles, and now if you're a kid, you go next week to get the next issue, and it's the same Sky Striker from a different angle, and it's chewed up and bulleted. Like that's great.
Yeah, it's got the title Skydive, and it also this is one of those where it is kind of the first panel of the story.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
What's
this
it
dialogue?
That's not in.
So Lady J says, "Tell it to me straight, Ace. We're going to die, aren't we?"
He doesn't answer.
No answer. The Irish and the Canadian.
Yeah. He's too polite. He's like, I don't want to tell you of your impending doom. So they are stalled out. She says, it's been nice knowing you, Ace. He says, I'm going to drop the nose 1,000 feet and open up the throttles to full military power. From that drawing, it doesn't feel like they have 1,000 feet to drop.
Yeah.
That's just throwing that out there, but he's going to do it. And what they're doing is they're trying to restart the engines because like they were going so slow again to fight helicopters that
Naturally.
there wasn't enough air flowing through the engines to kind of keep them lit and ignited.
Oh, and by the way, same writer, same artist.
Yeah.
Steve White, Martin Griffiths.
I like this. They use a vulgar word, relight. Damn it, relight.
Yeah.
I like that. Come on, baby, please relight. And you get a thoom and the engines kick in. So now they got to pull up, get the nose back up. And they skim the trees just like every fun airplane escape has to happen in every movie we've seen, which I love. That's always fun, see how much of the treetops they could trim.
Break a few limbs here.
Yeah, or the mountaintop they can scuff, So Ace is out of the they're saved, but they're down, but they're not out. Flint is going to take on these fangs. They're still looking for this Cobra base, though.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, we see for the first time, didn't see him in the last issue, but Flint's copilot here.
Right. Do you know who that is?
No dialogue, no name. Speculation, though, where we are, 1987. Who could that be? What's your best guess?
Psych out, blonde.
That's a decent guess. Yeah.
He's got glasses on, but I can't tell if those are glasses.
But a lot of the characters in 87 for them are like 85, 86 characters, because they got our characters a little later. Right. So I wasn't sure that Psych Out would have been in.
No, probably not. I mean,
he's
not
world
dressed
yet.
like he's got a blue shirt. Who do you think?
My only guess is Short Fuse. That's all I've got.
Yeah, well, Short Fuse was blonde, right?
Yep, Short Fuse was blonde.
Did he wear
had the
glasses?
visor on his helmet,
Okay.
which in my mind could have been a prescription visor.
Yeah.
So without the helmet, he needs glasses. That's
yeah, I could go for that. Any other notable blondes?
no, only Hawk.
Low Light. Low Light was a blonde.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But yeah, only Hawk, and Hawk only because they brought in Duke. So No, Hawk was a blonde. Then they brought in Duke. So they made Hawk a brown.
Right.
Man, those early issues of G.I. Joe when they were both involved.
Oh, super
If you
confusing.
listen to me read them, I was left and right going Hawk, Duke. No, that is. Oof.
All right, Super 7. There's a real deep dive for you.
That's a super deep dive.
We have a co-pilot from Action Force issue.
Maybe that was Shooter. Maybe that's Shooter.
Issue 30.
Maybe that's infamous Shooter from the first issue of G.I. Joe.
Before she was retconned as a female.
Oh, did we? Oh, that's right. It was. She was. They did retcon her as a female.
But yes. Anyway,
moving
on.
So it's more dogfight stuff. So we've got Wild Bill chasing them. They say the fangs are too small to lock onto with their Sidewinder missiles, which seems like a weird deficiency for a vehicle that's designed to fight specifically. They know fangs are the bad guys' weapon of choice.
Yes.
So we have to get a vehicle going that fights fangs. Wait a minute, these missiles can't fight fangs. That seems like you go back to the contractor on that and go, fix this.
This is maybe where there's some theories out there that G.I. Joe got some of their armaments from Mars. And so maybe behind the scenes, there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on. We promise you this, it does this. Oh, maybe it doesn't,
I like that.
We have to sell more armaments. So.
But we also have to sell the toy, and we have to highlight the fact that they've got the Dragonfly has a chin cannon.
Yes.
And so that's what Wild Bill uses to knock that one fang out of the sky. But meanwhile, two more fangs come up behind. This is just really fun dogfight stuff. We're kind of blowing over it, but that's really all it is. It's just a big dogfight chase. I think it's told really well. We get a little river, so now they're flying above a river, which is very Rambo-esque. Remember that in First Blood when the helicopters the helicopter scene over the river?
Yeah.
We got that going on. Now we get the Sky Striker swoop back and take out a couple fangs. And this is another scene where this moment of we get a closer look at the blonde guy.
Yes.
Where they're talking over the radio, so it's certainly not audio, but Flint is talking to Lady J we show they're both their cockpits. there's no way they would be going at the same speed. You know what I mean? The panel is like when you're two people driving in a highway and you lean over and you're like, hey, Jim, and your other car, let's go down the street, you know, like a Fast and Furious movie. They have this helicopter flying at the same, like they're, you know?
I would venture to say that in the 80s, helicopters were king.
They were.
I'm not to say that.
Airwolf, Blue Thunder.
Yes. Yeah.
100%.
I mean, how many video games? Yeah. Not to say that jets weren't awesome. Top Gun came in the late 80s.
This is post Top Gun, though. Top Gun was 86.
That's true.
This is post Top Gun.
That is true. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But
just like the teacher putting his clothes on.
But in England, they were playing catch up a little bit. So you know, helicopters were still king. That's what I'm getting after here. So it's like we have to write a Sky Striker story, but we you know, the helicopters are the cool part of this story. So that plane is going to go the speed of the helicopter because you know.
Or yeah. Also, I
we're going to treat it like a helicopter. Is what I'm saying.
I understand all that. Also, the vibe also might be that maybe it was we do need to, since we're featuring the Sky Striker, but we only want one. Like we don't want it to be a cadre of Sky Strikers. Right. Because maybe they realize it is too ridiculous for one Sky Striker to go against 5 helicopters and not just fly away. That, you know what I mean? Then they need to bring in the Dragonflies because they weren't using you know what I mean? Like once you think about it, it builds too much and you're like, I do want it to just be a contained story.
Sure.
So, they finally find out where the base goes. They're going to follow these fangs to the base. And so we get to the next issue. They said Flint Cobra had a chance to close that base when the United Nations asked them to do it. They blew it. So it looks like we're going to have to do the job ourselves. So they're going to have to destroy this Cobra base in South America.
So shall we
look
real quick?
Issue number
31.
31.
Sky Struck. And it is 2 Cobra officers and a dead one. Yep.
Or soldiers and Crimson Guardsmen, and they're standing in front of that dope
Cobra battle bunker.
Cobra battle bunker.
Yeah.
I had one. Did you?
I got one a little later in life. Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah. I love a collapsible toy. Like, you know, just you put it together, you have your fight, and it blows up. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Really great.
Yeah.
It's a nice drawing. Yeah, it's nice. There's firefight stuff. The background very reminiscent of the file cards. So you get that in mind, just the explosive background there.
Yeah. And again, uncredited this cover, but I'm just going to go ahead and guess Kev Hopgood again.
Probably, yeah.
I guess we...
Yeah. And I like that. So now it wasn't Sky Striker, but now the name of the story is Sky Struck, and so now we're seeing what they struck.
Yep. We finally made it to the base.
Yeah.
And also, again, written by Steve White and drawn by Martin Griffiths. So that's why I think Kev Hopgood did the
this
cover.
is a lot of fun, by the way. Nitpicking because it's fun to, you know, break stuff down. Like, how did he change his clothes and how are they keeping up? But in honesty, this is a very enjoyable story.
It's great.
It's really great.
This is our epic conclusion to this 3-parter.
So as the Sky Striker flies over this hidden Cobra base, they get some surface-to-air missiles after him. Now, that's more real. That's more what I expect.
Yeah.
That I'm down with, because you see that everywhere. In all the air, we got SAMs, and they launch missiles, then you have to have your missile evasion. So we start out with a nice establishing shot of the SAMs chasing the Sky Striker. Then we go to a sourcing establishing shot. Where did those SAMs come from? And we see a bunch of Cobra soldiers running around. We see the battle bunker there. Nice toy placement. We even get the missile. You see the missile?
Yeah, that came with it.
That's really cool.
And you see 4 of them launched here. I mean, you know, they're not just sitting there.
No, they're not sitting there. Is that I think that's a ferret in the background they drew. Very small, right above that missile. I think it's a Cobra ferret.
Yep.
So then we get the old Sky Striker deploying chaff thing that you see that in every Top Gun-esque movie.
Yeah, and they do the asterisk where they tell you if you don't know what chaff is, strips of metal foil.
Yep. They call them SAMs, and they do the asterisk surface-to-air missiles. That editor caption, I miss it so much.
Yeah.
I miss it so much in comic books now. I just miss it. And not from a, you can't Google it perspective, but from a keeping the reader, how do I phrase this? reminding us that we're reading a comic book
Yeah.
versus just looking at pictures. You know what I mean? That we're reading a story and that story has meaning. Whereas here's a bunch of pretty pictures. And, does that make sense? I've been reading a lot. I've been reading a lot of modern comics on digital, like stuff I haven't read recently. Stuff stuff that's not normal stuff I read.
Yeah.
And pretty pictures and stuff, but it's just that lack of editorial.
I was even reading, I feel like they continued it more with G.I. Joe, with Hama in the IDW era, but in the Skybound era, they've really fallen away from that.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking, I'm enjoying what I'm reading, but there are a few instances recently of Hama's G.I. Joe, from Skybound that I've been reading. I'm like, I literally did have to look something up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe they could have helped me along a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I've said this on the show. Editors are so important to comic books.
Yeah.
And when you have good ones, it shows, and when you don't have good ones, it shows. And it's the silent partner, and what it really is just someone to shepherd the project. It's the silent partner that no one appreciates, but everyone needs, and so it's often the most underappreciated, underpaid position, and they give it to a lot of entry-level people who may or may not be qualified to do it. I'm not singling anyone out at all. I'm certainly not singling anyone at Skybound, but that's just what it is. It's a bunch of kids who don't have that kind of. There's no storytelling handshake. They seem to be project managers more than creative shepherds.
I will single one person out, which is Richard Starkings here, who has done all of these books.
Failed
legend.
Us, Michael.
He's a legend.
Failed us.
He's a legend.
He was at San Diego.
Really?
I saw him.
Wow.
And he was talking to someone, and I failed us. I could have done the old handshake 1-2.
That's cool.
I didn't do it. I wasn't prepped. My brain wasn't there, and I was like, no. So I'm sorry.
Wow.
On air, apologize. But you're right. Archie Goodwin.
Yeah.
Was kind of just brilliant. Anything you read that was edited by Archie Goodwin, because you also then read the stuff that he wrote, and it was really great. And then you see the books that he shepherded, and they were just really told well. Mm-hmm. And they were different, wide variety of books, but they're just told really well. And I think that kind of influence is often needed and often missed in modern comics. That's all I'm going to say.
Sure.
Certainly not. I'm enjoying. I'm not talking about G.I. Joe stuff. I'm talking more traditionally a Marvel DC reader. More so than anything else. So
because we interrupted our flow just a little bit.
Yeah.
Since we're at a point there, I'm just gonna circle in the mission control section of this issue before we get to our finale. You will remember this competition, Joe.
Yeah.
It was Cobra Commander and Destro, and we had to write in the dialogue, and you were going to send one in.
It's sitting on my desk.
You can do it posthumously.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't. It was not going to be in time to make it into this issue, so don't give me that look.
But real quick, the time has come to last announce the winners of our fantastic video competition, and we must say that the standard of entries was so high that we decided to pick a single overall winner. He was Sean Stafford of Swansea, who not only receives his 2 videos, but also wins a Destro figure from Hasbro. Would you like to...
Sure.
Read the winning dialogue?
Yeah, so the image, if you listeners recall, it was Cobra Commander standing, Destro sitting, and in front of them was a TV screen with Duke and Flint and Footloose from the cover of Action Force 1 with Destro's picture on it. It's like they're watching a video of some fever dream. And Cobra Commander is saying,
Destro, these videos show Cobra defeats. I want them all confiscated.
And Destro replies, I can't let you have the whole lot, Commander. I'm sorry. I can let you have the whole lot, Commander. At a very reasonable price.
Naturally.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good caption. I like it because it smacks of Cobra Commander wants the propaganda destroyed, and Destro is going to make a profit off it.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty good. A solid kudos to that kid.
And yeah, Sean Stafford has his entry immortalized.
That's great. There's a young Danny Boyle wrote that.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, let's jump back into the book.
Sky Strike.
Sky Strike. They evaded some SAMs. They dropped some chaff. Now they're bombing it. And this whole, one thing we never talk about, this whole adventure, they've had a yellow undercarriage container strapped to the Sky Striker. And it was noticeable, but they didn't talk about it, which I think was kind of cool. Because they knew that that container is full of these smaller bombs.
Yeah.
650 fragmentation bomblets, which is not a part of the Sky Striker's normal armament. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of neat that they knew they were doing this. So they're like, we can't just randomly drop bombs out of nowhere. We need to draw something to hold them on the bottom. And so what looked like inflation, like a yellow inflatable pool thing, was actually holding these 650 fragmentation bombs. Mm-hmm. So the Sky Striker devastates this base. Really cool images. I like the explosions. Nice solo shots of the Dragonfly also mopping up, killing fools. And
we get to the point where Flint actually feels sorry.
Yeah, they really went Apocalypse Now on this place.
He says, I think we've done enough damage.
I read you, Flint. I'll call in the Red Cross, get them to pick up any survivors. I don't know who that. Do we know who that is? Flying Rio for Wild Bill?
Same situation where, unidentified copilot.
He's got a mustache though, so that's probably Mutt.
I was going to say Zap.
Oh, could be Zap.
But,
could be Zap or Mutt.
But it could totally be Mutt.
Yeah, Zap or Mutt. And we run into a problem. They are sad about murdering everyone, but not murder. But Ace is out of fuel. So more shots of Ace and Lady J being shocked. If you go through and just look at the photos, like this next page where we see the flag in the top image, the look on their faces are horrified. And the look on their faces throughout most of these 3 issues, horrified. There is a look of shock that is just unparalleled. And they're prepping for a glide landing. Now Ace keeps telling Lady J to eject to save herself because he thinks they're going to die, and she says, "No, I'm with you all the way." The engines burn out. Now, I thought that in this situation, even though they are technically out of fuel, I think the maneuver to actually dump whatever's left.
I thought so.
Yeah, because and also your bombs too. Because do they still have missiles on there?
I think
they do. They totally do. There's still missiles in the final panel when they get caught by the net.
Oh yeah.
So they make a glide crash landing which is cool. I like all this. They safely land. The Sky Striker shatters on the tarmac, the wing tips, and they get caught by that netting, which is sweet. But they still have missiles on there. I'm pretty sure they drop all the weaponry. All the ammunition cases get popped out, and then they dump all their fuel because that would all explode.
Yes.
And I like this at the end. Almost out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. You really know how to show a girl a good time. So that's it for Lady J and Ace.
I feel like they should have gotten a close-up there. Just with all of these close-ups on the terrified faces.
Yeah, and it could have been them not screaming to death. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Griffiths is saying, I can draw terrified faces, but I can't draw happy faces. So.
It's funny. So we're going to move on to issue 30. And listeners, I'm going to jump in there and say, tune in next week. Mike and I went really long in this episode, and I think because there are all these single, solo, disparate stories, I think this will work well as a two-parter. So hope you enjoyed this. Tune in next week for part 2 of this singular issue journey through the midsection of Action Force. We're really loving doing this, and I'll see you next week. So now you, Joe, and Joe Inks half the battle. Full force.